to be making a fun Frankenstein soap today. I've been wanting to do this for a while, just haven't had the time or, well, really the space to do it. So this year we do have it, and I'm going to actually pour this one upside down. So I have this little cake. I don't know what these are called. It's for design decorations. It makes a little shape in there. And this is a 20-pound mold that made out of the corrugated plastic that I had made. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour the black first, and then I'm going to scrape it for the hair. Then I'm going to pour a layer of green, then put in some eyeballs, and then pour the rest of the green. Now the eyeballs, I made these, took me a couple days to make them. I have them all ready to go. They kind of look like Cookie Monster. I wanted it to be like a fun, goofy Frankenstein. When I make the black for the middle part of the eye, that I ended up using silicone straws. I had purchased a silicone mold, column mold, years ago, but it doesn't work very well. It's not a very good one. And I found that silicone straws cut it along the side, and then I tape it while I'm putting the LCP in there, like cold process MP in there, and then that sets it pretty good. And then I have my larger circle column mold that I kind of had to eyeball it and put the black part in there, trying to get as centered as possible. Some of them aren't, but you know what? It's going to be kind of fun when you've got a goofy monster with the eyes going different ways. Anyway, centered it in there as best I could, poured some in, let it set up, and then poured the rest of it up there. I only have one of the larger ones, so that took a little bit extra time when you only have one mold to get everything done. And those do take some time to harden. Anyway, these are LCP, light cold process MP soaps. They're not supposed to sweat. However, they are much harder to work with. The clear, for some reason, it was very dry, even though it was a new batch, and the white was really nice, easy to cut. So I'm really hoping that when the bars are done, when I cut them open, I'm not going to have any brittle little black parts of the eyeball. Fingers crossed. So those are going to go in, and color, I'm using Activate Charcoal from Essential Depot. I have that. And then I'm using Enchantment from Nurture Soap. I haven't used this one before, but I had my kids pick out the color of the ones that I have. So I'm going to use that. Fragrance, going to do a blend. I had a little bit of patchouli left, and I had some energy. Both of those are from Brambleberry. And then a little bit of Fruit Fantasia from Essential Depot. So I've done a patchouli and energy, because energy is a very bright citrus. I've done kind of a patchouli orange soap with these before. I didn't have enough to do a full batch, so I added in that Fruit Fantasia, just a little extra fruit. It's not a patchouli soap at all, but the patchouli, when you add it into other things, it just gives it like an extra pop. I know that sounds really weird. I am not a patchouli lover, but I love what it adds to different fragrances as just a little bit on the base. It just adds a little bit of richness, a little bit of earthiness to make it really seem more natural versus something that's like overly sweet, as some fruit fragrances can be. So anyway, those are the fragrances. I've got my colors. This is not obviously the whole entire batch, because I'm going to do a quarter of it in the black, a quarter of it in the green, place the eyeballs, and then do the extra half. This is an extra 20 ounces with these eyeballs. Each one of these is 5 ounces. So I have some little individual molds over here that I'll pour the excess batter in. And I do not want to CPOP this, cold process, oven process. I'm still going to cover it and leave it on the counter, but I don't want those eyeballs to melt. Sometimes when you put in MP, melt and pour glycerin type soap, embeds inside the soap or even on top, and you CPOP it in the oven, sometimes those melt, and that's not fun when you ruin your design. All right, I'll come back once I have the lye sorted out. I have to divide that out, and then we'll get started. stop recording because this was one of those times when the melt and pour embeds did not behave well. Most of the time they do, but with soap making and anything, sometimes things just don't want to work right. And this is one of those times. So I didn't put them in the oven because I didn't want them to cold process, oven process. I didn't want them to come to a full gel, but they apparently decided to anyway. So I did have a little bit of melting in there. Let me show you first what happened. So when I was cutting, I hit the eyes and then my cutter stopped, and that's really can be harmful to your cutter. You don't ever want to use these for a full melt and pour soap. Usually, like I said, with LCP, with smaller amounts, they'll cut through and they'll just be fine. But this batch did not want to do it. So you also don't ever want to stop cutting at the halfway marker anytime during cutting, because then you get lines and you have to buff those out, so to speak. So this this batch actually, or this loaf, so to speak, wasn't too bad, but they're going to need some trimming. So the eyes are really, especially the black part, because I was saying earlier that the clear one that I used, the black, was really brittle when I was cutting it from the original loaf, so to speak, or bundle, I guess, I don't know, of the LCP. The white was fine, but let me show one that I've already trimmed up. This one I've already trimmed up. As you can see, it did get too warm, so it did gel on its own, even though I didn't want it to. And you kind of got that where the white turned clear, so it did melt, and then you end up kind of with a halo. They're monsters, so it looks fine. I'm just not super happy because that wasn't the initial look I was going for. I did have one. This one looks pretty cool. So that was what they were supposed to look like. And the majority of them don't look like this. But you know what? They're fun soaps. They're going to sell well. I'm just going to have to spend extra time trimming them up. I have my little planer here that I'm going to shave basically the fronts off each side and then trim the sides. So it'll be fine. I'm happy how one of them turned out, but it gives me ideas for next year when I do it. The pattern for the hair turned out really cool, so I'm excited about that, and I think the proportions are how I wanted them. So anyway, we'll come back for a final look when I'm done with these, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.